All right, we're going to take a look at graphing out of standard form. So standard form looks like this right up here. AX plus BY equals C, where A, B, and C are always just some integer. So integers are numbers like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and so on. All right. So we want to see how can we pull out some information from standard form to graph. So unlike our other two forms, it doesn't have the word slope, it doesn't have the word intercept, it doesn't have the word point in the name. So that means it doesn't tell us directly any information about this line. We have to go and hunt for every piece of information that we need. So the first thing we are going to go look for is some point that we can graph on the line. And what we're going to be looking for is either an x-intercept or a y-intercept. So where it crosses the x-axis or where it crosses the y-axis. So let's go to example 7 and let's look for our first one. Let's look for an x-intercept. So we're going to do this by substituting in 0 for y. So our point is going to take the form x comma 0. So some x value comma 0, and we're looking for that x value right now. So we're going to take this equation here in number 7. We're going to substitute in 0 for y. So we'll have 2x minus 3 times 0 equals 6. So let's simplify this. So we have 2x, and then -3 times 0 is really just 0. And you could have written -0, it doesn't really matter. And then if we're looking at this guy, 2x plus 0, well, anything plus 0, it's just itself. I'm adding essentially nothing to it. So we're going to rewrite this as just 2x equals 6. We can divide both sides by 2, and we'll get x equals 3. So this is for our x-intercept here. Okay, that's what we're finding. Okay, well, we saw above that our point was of the form x comma 0. Well, we just found that x, it's 3, and that y is always 0. So there's our first point. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that right on the graph. This is an x-intercept, so it belongs on the x-axis. So right here, that is the point 3, 0. And you don't have to label this point. I'm just doing it for our notes for now. All right, let's keep going. Let's find this y-intercept. Okay, so this is going to be very similar with one slight difference, which is that this time we're going to substitute 0 in for x. So if you see in our point, the 0 is now in the spot where the x value goes, and we're looking for that y value. So let's find this y-intercept. So we're going to go to our equation, we're going to substitute in 0 for x. We're going to have 2 times 0 minus 3y equals 6. Well, 2 times 0 is just 0. All right. 0 minus 3y is just negative 3y. All right. So you can kind of think about it as our zeros in this case just sort of drop off, right? Once we plug 0 in and once that term becomes 0, we don't really have to worry about them anymore. So we'll divide both sides by -3, and we get y equals -2. So now we can go ahead and fill in that point. We said, okay, we let x be 0, and we just found that y is -2. So this is a y-intercept. Make sure you plot this guy on the y-axis. So that's right here, the point 0, -2. Okay, so at this point, I could just graph my line because all we need to graph a line is 2 points. And I have those 2 points. I had 2 nice intercepts which allow me to graph a line. So I can go ahead and just graph a line, making sure that I have arrows on the end. Okay, but I want to check my work here a little bit, and I'm going to do that by finding my slope. All right, so when we find slope from standard forms, this is going to be step 2, and we're going to have to use this sometimes. So when we find slope, that's always going to rise over our run. And when we find it from standard form, we need to pull it out of that equation by taking the opposite of our A value and dividing it by our B value. Okay, so let's look in this equation. So here our A value is a 2, our B value is a -3. So keep in mind that this number holds on to that sign to the left of it. So if I want to find my slope, I'm going to take the opposite of a +2, which is a -2, divided by whatever B is, which happens to be a -3. Always, always, always reduce 2/3. So I'm going to go on my graph and I'm going to use that slope. So if I start at this point that I already found, my 0, -2, if I go up 2, right 3, oh, I get to my other point. That tells me, hey, I graphed this correctly. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through our second example here. So we're now on this example number 9, and we want to find our 2 intercepts to start with. So let's start with our x-intercept. So for this, I'm plugging in 0 for the other variable for y. So this is going to be x minus 4 times 0 equals 2, or x plus 0 equals 2. Anything plus 0 is just itself, so we have x equals 2. All right, let's write that as a point, 2, 0. Let's find that y-intercept. Okay, so this time we're plugging in 0 for the other guy, which the other guy at this time is x. So we're going to have 0 minus 4y equals 2, which simplifies to simply -4y equals 2. So remember, this sign to the left of the 4, that belongs to it. Okay, and we're going to divide, and we get y equals -1/2. Ooh, a fraction. That's a little bit new. Okay, so let's write our point. 0, -1/2. And we're going to go and just quickly find our slope while we're at it. So we're just finding all 3 pieces of information, and then we're going to pick what we want to graph from. So our slope is still opposite A over B. Just remember, if there's no value written as a coefficient, it's really just 1. So our A here is 1. We're going to take the opposite, which is a -1. Our B value is that -4. And we're going to simplify that to a 1/4. Okay, so now I have 2 points and a slope. Well, one of our slopes, or one of our points, has a fraction in it. We're counting by ones on this graph, so we can't accurately graph fractions, so we don't want to use that. What we do want to use is just the single point and a slope, which is mostly what we've been using for our other 2 forms in order to graph. So let's plot that x-intercept. So x-intercepts go on the x-axis. So there's our point, 2, 0. And now we're going to use our slope. So from that point, I'm going to go up 1, right 4 to get a second point. From that point, I could also have done the opposite. So instead of up and right, I could have gone down and left 4. All right. Either way, I have 3 nice points that I can now draw a line through. All right, so here's my line. And lines extend forever in each direction, so we need arrows on the end to indicate that. And we are done graphing from slope-intercept form.